and welcome to another Denis Wick Products interview. And I'm here today with Ryan Christianson. And so it's great to see you, Ryan. Thank you very much for taking part in this. My first question to you is, can you sort of explain a little bit about where you live and why you live there?
Sure. I live in Chicago, Illinois, which is, for those who might not know, one of the biggest cities in the United States and right in the middle of the country. I grew up as a Midwesterner, and so it definitely has a feeling of home, but a place where I can perform as a freelancer across a wide variety of settings. Here in Chicago, I will often be found playing in New Orleans style brass bands. I will oftentimes be playing with symphony orchestras. I have performed with Broadway type shows. And it was also a really good home base for me while I was touring with the brass quintet, the Dallas Brass. I toured with them for about 7 years. So we have a big airport, and I could get anywhere pretty quickly from here. So it's been a great spot, a really diverse musical profile here in Chicago that it's just a pleasure to get to be a part of.
It's a very convenient place to be, as you say. So lots of opportunities there, which is fantastic. So yeah. What inspired you to choose your instrument? Was it by accident, or did that happen as a result of some family members, or how did that come about?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I started playing trombone when I was quite young. So my father is a trumpet player, and his dad is a trumpet player. My brother's a trumpet player. A lot of trumpet players in the family. So the story kind of goes, it's sort of by accident that my older brother was, 4 or 5, and was playing trumpet with my dad, and you're just fiddling around and kind of, playing some notes and learning some things by ear and all that stuff. And my dad's a band director, a high school band director, and had just bought a trombone, and it was lying around. And apparently I wanted attention. I was about 2 or 3 years old and picked it up and started tooting on it. And that was pretty much the end of it. Actually, I would say my first working memories that I have are my dad teaching me to play the Power Rangers theme song on trombone. Go, go, Power Rangers. Yeah. So I couldn't reach past third position, so it worked out pretty well.
Oh, that's fantastic. And do you play any other instruments, or is it you just stick to trombone? I mean, for instance, there's, alto, contra, bass trombone.
Yeah, so I do play. I do play the whole family of trombones. I own and operate a bass trombone. I don't consider myself a true doubler, but I can pull it out and like to when I have the opportunity. I play alto in recital occasionally, as well as I held a position as the principal trombonist with the Milwaukee Ballet Orchestra. So I played it up there, and occasionally on freelance orchestra opportunities, I'll play alto as well. But mostly large and small bore tenor, staying in that world. I also spent a number of years going through a music education program, so I learned all the instruments, do that stuff, and used to teach. When I was first starting out as a freelancer, I took that opportunity to teach pretty much every instrument I could to keep things running. So,
Excellent. Oh, that's. I'm very jealous. If only I could play alto trombone. I've got one, but I take it on holiday with me. That's about it.
Yeah, that's good.
So, what event do you think, or do you feel would have improved your playing, or how you play? Was there something in a concert or a lesson that made you think, yeah, that's really pushed me on and improved me in some way?
That's a really good question. And I think when I consider my career, I think it's really 2 spots in my life where I felt like I made a decision that this is what I do now. The first one was around when I was 19 years old. I just moved. I grew up in a very rural part of the country, and it had bounced around. I'd gone to a big state school down in Texas for a little while, and then ended up going to the University of Minnesota, which is in a big city, Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I was there, and I remember having this choice after my first year there. It was close enough to where I grew up, where I could go home for the summer if I wanted, or I could stay there and pursue freelancing opportunities, starting to build a career for myself as a player in this much larger city than where I grew up. That was a tough decision. I had a girlfriend back home. Fortunately, now my wife, so that worked out. But but made the decision that it's like, well, you know what? I think I want to stay here and make a crack at this. So and that was just this decision of, I think I'm a professional trombonist now, and it just forced me to make decisions and treat my playing in a way where I expected myself to be a professional. And that was a big moment. And then a couple years, maybe 3 years after that, I was asked to audition for the Dallas Brass. And I remember it's not a traditional audition process where a bunch of people show up on the same day. It was a long drawn out process over a couple weeks. Of getting to know the people in the group, being sure it was a good fit, because at that time we were on the road over 100 days a year, so you want to be sure everything works out and everybody's going to be happy with each other. And I remember I got the call that I'd won the job, and the next morning I woke up and I realized it's like, I was 22 at the time, and that was a full-time job for me. And I realized, like, literally the only thing I have to worry about today is being a trombonist and being as good at trombone as I can be. And that was this moment where I started really taking ownership of my playing, as like the things that I'm not good at, I need to get better at, because my job is being a trombonist. The things that I'm good at, I need to get better at, because that's my job as a trombonist. So I think that if I were to point to more than any moments, just these mindset shifts of, this is my job now, and I'm going to take ownership of it.
Fabulous. Thank you very much. That's great. And you've been a Denis Wick artist for some time now, I think. So in terms of the different products that you use, combination of mouthpiece and instrument, or the mutes that you'd use for various different types of playing, I guess, for different styles of playing. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that, and whether you've got any strong opinions on, this mouthpiece only works with this instrument, or for me, this is the best combination, etc.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I love about Denis Wick products in general is I tend to be a very gearhead averse type person. I like to find something that works and keep it for everything. And that's the thing, especially in my career here in Chicago, and especially it was really pronounced on the road with Dallas Brass. Dallas Brass is a crossover brass quintet where 1 minute we might be playing classical music, and the next second we might be playing a ragtime, and the next second we might be doing salsa and other things, other commercial styles. And I needed to have, I'm not going to be sitting here putzing with pulling out a mouthpiece for each one of those, although there are some trumpet players I know who would do that. So for me, I think one of the things that I love about it is that I'm very, very basic in my setups. I use a 10 CS a Heritage on my alto. I use a 7 CS Classic on my small bore tenor, and I use that for pretty much everything that runs the gamut of jazz and commercial styles. Occasionally, if I'm sitting third in a big band, I have a 6 BS that I'll pull out just to darken up the sound, and especially if the person, I come out of a school of lead trombone playing that is tends to be a little bit more narrow, a little bit more focused sounds. And so if I'm playing with somebody who's not that, I'll sometimes bring out a 6 BS and warm it up a little bit. But generally speaking, those are the two, pretty much exclusively using a 7 CS. For classical playing, I use a 4.5 AL on the large bore. I occasionally, if I'm playing something that is a little bit more commercial in nature that still needs the large bore, I might use a 6 AL. But again, we're just keeping everything. That's very rare. I pretty much use a 4.5 for everything. And then for bass trombone, I use a 1 AL. All that's classic. So basically, I try to use I try to keep things as similar as possible because my goal is to forget about the equipment, if that makes sense. I don't want to have to think about which mouthpiece I'm switching in and out. I don't want to have to think about it. And the Denis Wick products that I use, I love because I never have to think about it. It's nothing. I never pick up an instrument and feel like, oh man, I haven't touched this one in a while. And I never play in a style and have to think like, oh man, this feels different because I'm playing in this new style. It's just, what am I hearing? Put it out the horn is kind of how it works.
Oh, that's great to know. And so we're pleased that we're in some small way able to help with that. So that's fantastic.
Major way. Yeah, and it's all super comfortable. That's the other thing. I love working with them because everything feels right on the face, and that's a thing. And and also in my work as a teacher, I also love that I can recommend it to most of my students, and even if they're just trying out mouthpieces or just starting down that process, I can recommend a really high quality product that they're not shelling out $500 for necessarily. It's something that people can use.
No, absolutely. Well, thank you very much. And then finally, who do you think inspired you more as you sort of developed your playing and had lessons and listened to people? Was it teachers, your peers? Was it YouTube? Was it CDs? If you had CDs back then, I'm not sure.
I'm not that young. I had CDs. Yeah, definitely had CDs. I even had a tape deck. I had a tape deck in the family van when I was a kid. My dad had. I remember one particular. He had made these little mixes when he was young, and it's for the jazz side. It was Clifford Brown on one side and Paquito de Rivera on the other side, and that was a formational experience listening to that stuff as well. No, that's a great question, and of course it's a combination of all things, of course. But when I think about the people that have really impacted my playing, I think it's not quite peers and it's not quite teachers. It's an element of both, I guess. But thinking about some major mentors and people that I got to share a stage with, where I wouldn't necessarily think of them as a peer, but it's somebody that really, really shaped me. On the jazz side of things, when I was in Minneapolis, I played with a guy named Pete Emblem. I think about his playing a lot. I think he toured with the Buddy Rich Band for a while, and obviously, the sounds that I had in my head when I was growing up. I grew up in a musical family. And so, my dad's best friend, Lynn Schrader, I still think about his sound when I'm playing. It's one of those ones where I doesn't immediately come to mind. It's just so fundamental to what I think a trombone sounds like, because it's the sounds that I was hearing when I was 2 and 3. Along those lines, I guess teachers as well. Here in Chicago, I have the opportunity to play with a guy named Russ Phillips, and I think about Russ's playing all the time. Russ is an incredible trombonist, one of the best jazz trombone players I know of at all. And he comes from this rich legacy of tradition. His dad played in Louis Armstrong's band after Jack Teagarden. Incredible stories, and just to get to hear that sound and get to connect to that is huge. And as a classical player, again, I think the things that really drive me are the playing experiences. Is who am I matching? Who am I working with? Because that's the stuff that sticks with me when I have something that I've done that I can really connect it to. So I guess peers in that sense is a better word for it. But playing with the guys in Dallas Brass for a long time really shaped my sound and really shaped the way that I play. And then I think when I think about the teachers in that same zone, I think the teachers that I studied with, Tom Ashworth, Mark Fisher, Charlie Vernon, Mark Hetzler, shaped the way that I think about what I'm doing. But I think when I think about the sounds that I'm making in those spots, I'm always going back to the people that I'm actually playing with regularly. And that's what really kind of drives the progression, playing. So I guess if there's a lesson in there, be sure you're playing with people that are better than you too. People that are at least, really insistent on a high level of musicianship all the time. Cause that's such a driving force, because once that's in there and once you hear it and once you can feel what it feels like to play at that at a higher level than you had before, then it's there forever, and never goes away. You want to use it all the time. So.
Well, that's fabulous advice. Thank you very much, Ryan, for your time today. It's been great finding out a little bit more about yourself, and I'm sure it won't be the last time that we'll get in touch and do an interview. So thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.